thank you very much for joining us today. Really warm welcome for our webinar all about non-NHS income in general practice, how you can increase your efficiency, reduce the kind of missed opportunities that there are around non-NHS income, and probably most importantly at the moment, boost your profits. So today we'll be looking at that process that we believe is happening out there in most practices. And then we will be talking about how our GP billing software can help to drive efficiency. And also John is here with us today to give us a demonstration of the key features. So I'm Daniel Vincent, I'm a former practice manager. You may well know me from Enhanced Primary Care. We've recently moved our GP profit recovery product across into enhanced technology, and I am therefore now Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, and we're joined today by John Woodhouse, who is CEO of Enhanced Technology and also founder of the GP billing product. So we'd like to get to know a little bit more about you. So using menti.com, can you tell us what job title you join us with today? We appreciate that people in primary care often have many roles, wear many hats. So which hat are you wearing when you join us here today? Yeah, so practice manager, practice business manager, GP, assistant practice manager. And if you are just joining us, feel free to grab your phone, give that QR code there a scan, and contribute as we move through a couple of questions to learn more about you. So we'd love to know how you manage the billing of non-NHS work at the moment. Do you have a large number of team members who are able to create an invoice? Have you got sort of one person who creates the invoices? Perhaps you've got a small team of people who create the invoices, or perhaps you've got to the point where you have a dedicated billing team who are working around that sort of non-NHS work. Okay, so firmly landing in the one person creates the invoices. Oh, brilliant, got one entry there on a sort of a large number of team members are able to create invoices, so that's an interesting one. Again, if you are just joining us, appreciate what it's like out there in primary care, so feel free to give the QR code there a scan and join in with us for this interactive part of the webinar. So we'd love to know, what are your celebrations about the non-NHS work process? What's working well for you in your practice at the moment? So you should see a little box where you can pop in one celebration, and then when you've submitted that, you can pop in more than one if you want. Do often find the celebrations part slightly more challenging for practices than the next bit, which is frustrations. So I'll give you a moment to get the things that are working well in your non-NHS work. This is where my golden silence training comes in handy, because actually it takes a few moments for people to collate their thoughts and pop them into the software, and we're all going, is it working? Is it working? But actually it is. So celebrations, a specific price list for non-NHS work rather than picking figures out of the sky. That's really great that you've developed that. Fantastic. Often does feel like these things we make up as we go along. We've got one response from one person. Celebrations are challenging when we ask for them. We are about to move on to frustrations, but just hold here for another 10 seconds just to see if we get any more celebrations, because what we want to make sure is that we don't throw out the baby with the bathwater as we make changes in our processes. So it's really important that we keep the things that are working well and only therefore change the things that are frustrating us. Okay, I'm going to move us on to frustrations then. So tell us, what's not working so well with regard to your non-NHS work? And if you've just joined us, then do give that QR code there a scan with your mobile and contribute to the conversation we're having here. Some frustration there. Our current invoicing system is outdated, poor reimbursement of private fees that are often challenged. Yeah, it's very interesting when you hold that NHS contract, people are very used to getting work from you for free. So then when you ask them to pay for it, it comes as a bit of a surprise. Obviously, we are a professional service, so the fees that we want to charge should be aligned with the training, the expertise, and the risk that's involved in doing any of this work. Now, I'm sure there must be more frustrations out there. So just going to give you another 30 seconds to. This is a safe space, cathartic. This is anonymous Menti poll, so feel free to use it to get those frustrations out around your non-NHS work. So in relation to insurance reports, lots of people involved. Yeah, admin, then GP, then admin again. Can take some time for GPs to return forms, or they mysteriously go missing. Yes, very familiar with that one. Yeah, doing the work and then not being paid for it. Really big one, actually, and something that surprised me with the GP billing product, actually, because I kind of felt like we asked for all the money up front. And then when I asked John, what are people billing, I realized that actually we weren't getting paid up front for all of our work. Slow payment from external companies. Yeah, research, service charges. Yeah. And it's a whole job in itself, isn't it? Trying to pick out where all of those invoices sit amongst the many things that we're doing at the moment. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Those frustrations really help us to understand, what's going wrong for you, and then obviously helping us to support the product to match those needs. So this is our final question for you. If you had all the time in the world, what improvements would you make to your non-NHS work process? Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, expand our non-NHS work because our income options within the NHS contract are limited. Yeah, so do more of it, and reflecting on those frustrations, obviously making sure that we get paid for it and that is as easy to do as possible. Just going to hold for another 20 seconds or so for give people a chance to hit submit. Wondering if I sort of stumped you here with the all the time in the world. Maybe that's a stretch too far for most people in practice. So we'll move on from here then. So since joining the GP billing team, I've really, tried to figure out what that standard process in general practice looks like at the moment. And this is the diagram that we've created to represent that. And we heard some of that in the frustrations there. So we get a patient, sometimes the patient, sometimes a third party, and they're making a work request. Now that may well come in by post, may come in by email, indeed patient may phone in or come to the front desk. So we've got a number of team members who are dealing with that work request. Sometimes even it's directly to the clinician sat in the room. And because of this kind of complexity around non-NHS work, most GP practices don't price at the point of delivery. So really lovely to hear somebody's got a price list to really help with that. But actually most practices are forwarding that work onto one person who is the dedicated person who deals with the non-NHS work. So that work will be forwarded to that team member. They will then have a look at that work, assess it, and select a price. That early observation of sometimes it's just kind of made up as they go along, and sometimes there's a guide price list to help with that. But often that person is solely responsible for deciding what that work is going to cost. So once they've done that, they will then put that onto the spreadsheet. All of this is on the basis that they actually have time, dedicated time to do it. This may happen perhaps once a week. So the patient comes in on the Monday and the person doesn't have the time to assess it until the Friday. They pop it onto the spreadsheet and they will then create an invoice based on what they've assessed that work will cost. A lot of practices still posting out that invoice, usually created on Word, and then posting it out to the patient. Some practices now using email, but definitely still a heavier reliance on post. So then there's sort of a bit of a disconnect. That invoice goes off out into the wild, and at some point the patient or the third party will pay that invoice. Now they may pay it using cash or card, or indeed a backs payment. If perhaps they're paying by cash or card, they will be coming into the practice to do that. So we have our petty cash tins, we have our kind of terminals in the practice, usually one sat on the reception desk. In my experience, that usually isn't plugged in, has run out of battery. So they will come into the practice, and perhaps then the receipt will go off to the dedicated team member. Backs payments, perhaps reconciling those once a month. So actually that will then get fed back to the dedicated team member that the patient has paid. But often that doesn't happen, and it's the patient or the third party contacting the practice saying, we've paid, where is our report? That sort of triggers the next step, which is to mark on the spreadsheet that actually we have received payment and therefore we can start work. And as we heard in the frustrations there, this dedicated team member then is reliant upon the clinical team to deliver that work. Often the clinical team are not given dedicated time to complete this work, and often it's distributed using some sort of, perhaps usual GP as a way of distributing the work. So actually, there's no kind of system there that the person can go, oh, this person's got dedicated time next Tuesday, or actually this person's not got very much NHS work, non-NHS work at the moment, I'm going to put this in with them. Gets recorded on the spreadsheet that it's gone across to that clinician, and then it waits, and ordinarily there'll be a couple of contacts from the patient or the third party to say, where is this work? I paid for it, I haven't received it yet. And usually that then kind of bumps the priority of that particular piece of work up, so it gets done. Eventually that work will return to the dedicated team member. They will then complete that spreadsheet and send the work product either off to the patient or the third party. So we think this is how the process works in most practices at the moment. It is a relatively simplified version. This is a piece of work that I did with a practice in their conference room with sticky notes. On the far left-hand side is the start of the process here with, in this particular case, blue badge requests. And all the way over here is the completed element. And what we'll find is over time, this process will have got more complicated. Often that kind of pricing issue sits around where people have got it wrong in the past, and therefore we need to control it, and we end up with a complexity of multiple forms in order to get the pricing correct. And then often kind of through the process, we end up building in control mechanisms for things that have happened. So this is a great opportunity to review that whole process. In this case, we managed to cut out all of this work actually, and it came down to about 5 steps, so fantastic. So one of our very kind customers did a time and motion study for us. So before they implemented GP billing, so they got their baseline, it was taking them 14 minutes to generate an invoice. So from that beginning of the process to the point where the invoice was sent out to the patient. And after implementing GP billing, down to an average of 2 minutes per bill. So that was taking them for 100 bills a month, 23.3 hours as their baseline. And after they implemented GP billing, that was down to 3.3 hours per month. So they managed to save themselves 20 hours a month. And as I said before, we know how precious time is in primary care. If we were to convert that across to a cost saving, you might be looking at £400 a month. You and I know that in reality, you're not going to be letting anyone go, so you're not going to save that money, but potentially what it means is that you're going to have an extra 20 hours a month that you can bring back into your team instead of having to appoint someone else. And the great news is that the GP billing product is priced at £99 plus VAT per month. So over a year, you're looking at time savings of 240 hours that can be put back into your team to do other work that needs doing. So when I joined the GP billing team, I was really intrigued to find out what the billing platform was being used for. So John kindly provided these statistics for me. And some things really stood out to me, actually. And the first one on the far left-hand side is how many letters were being charged for. I have to be honest, in my previous practice, we rarely charged for letters because actually the process of getting an invoice generated was such a faff that often the clinicians would just go ahead and do the letter for the patient. So you can see like an average value here of about £20 per letter. So actually we're charging for those things that we're doing for free at the moment. That's an entirely new income source for work that's already being done. No more work to do, but more income coming in. In the middle column here, got cremation certificates. So as a practice manager, I always felt very proud that we got the money in before we did any work. And then I realized that actually our GPs were going out on home visits to do the cremation certificates, and we were not capturing where they were going and who should be billed for that. We were wholly reliant upon the funeral directors paying that money into us. We had no tracking, no idea of how much that cost. And then over on the right-hand side there, we heard earlier about those studies. So yeah, we've got the questionnaires in there. So yeah, we used to participate in studies. We used to get a request through for information, and we wouldn't bill for that in advance. We would happily spend time filling out the form, and then we would send it off with absolutely no idea whether we'd actually been paid for it or not. So really lovely to see those things in there, as well as all the things that we would expect to see, plus some things that perhaps you've got other processes for, like your room hire, making sure that we're regularly billing for that and getting paid for that room usage. So just here a little spread of where we are across England and some feedback from our current customers. Kind of gist from that is that they love the efficiency it brings, that it's a super slick system, that they can see that it's been designed by people who understand how things work in general practice. So just a reminder of this complicated process before I hand you over to John, who's going to give us a live demonstration of the GP billing software and how it can support your practice. So over to you, John.
I'm going to walk through a short demonstration of the GP billing product, try and highlight some of the key functionality that we have available within the product and how it can help you within primary care. A bit of history about the product. It's been available within primary care now for about 6 or 7 years. It's been designed specifically around NHS requirements. So we've really understood how NHS primary care practices work, and we try to design that into a very simple, easy to use solution. So hopefully, as you'll see as we step through this, I'm not demonstrating to you a QuickBooks or a Sage or another complex accounting system. This is designed to be picked up by anybody in the practice to be used at any point in time with very little training required. Where possible, we have integrated with the main clinical systems, being TPP and EMIS Web. And for those, the integration is there to try and maximize the use of information that you may have already recorded, to simplify the processes so that when you're interacting with GP billing, it's as easy as possible. So the first thing you'll see is we have something called single sign-on. Nobody wants usernames and passwords. So immediately, as soon as you come into GP billing, it will be able to look at your clinical system log on, understand who you are, and sign you straight into the GP billing product with the necessary roles and permissions necessary to perform the activities that you need to perform within the GP billing system. The second key point is navigation. Everybody wants a really easy system to use. They don't want to have to go and find somewhere within an application in order to perform a function. So everything within GP billing is split between three main dashboards. So we have a billing dashboard, a reporting dashboard, and an administration dashboard. The majority of users within a GP practice will see nothing more than the billing dashboard, which is the one that you come into when you first load the software. On each of the dashboards are some nice big tiles. Those tiles help you navigate to the process that you're wanting to undertake. So whether I want to create a bill, whether I want to take a deposit while somebody's on the telephone, whether I want to view an account and answer a query for a patient or a company, those are very quick and easy to navigate from this front screen. I'm going to go through three different examples of billing. The first going to be a patient billing process. The second will be a third-party billing process. And finally, I'll introduce you just to how you bill business-to-business type services. So focusing and targeting primarily on those services that we bill out. They are slightly different workflows. However, the way in which we do it within GP billing is very, very easy, following a similar flow to what you're used to. So I'm going to start with creating a bill. So I use the big create bill button. And next to the selection here, I have the ability to synchronize with the clinical system to get the current patient, search for a patient, or add a patient if they don't exist within my clinical system. So I'm simply going to synchronize the patient. So I've got a currently selected patient within EMIS Web I'm using here, and it's going to go and get that patient and create them an account within the billing system. What it's also done is to look at the consultation history for this patient, and if there are any mapped non-NHS services for this patient, then it will automatically map those to items within our price list. So for this patient, I can see that there was an event on the 10th of the 4th with this clinician for a sports participation. If I select this, this item, it will automatically then put a fitness to participate certificate onto my bill, include the price, and I can discount it if I wish. From within here, I can delete this if this isn't the item that I actually wanted to add, and I can use my price list. So here we have an add items button. Within the add items button, you have a predefined price list. So the person there that said they've got a defined price list, this is where you would have that, and you would be able to always go and always make sure you're charging the correct amount at all times. So I can search this price list to filter it down and simply select the item that I want from that price list to put it onto the bill. Within here, I can set who the practitioner was. The benefit of doing that is it does allow you to look at revenue by practitioner, so who's actually generating that revenue within the practice. On the right-hand side, you then have an action button, and that allows you to define what you want to do next with this bill. So in this case, I'm going to post this bill and pay it. So that's going to take this bill, store it onto the system, and allow me to go and take a payment. Now you'll see here that it says that it's going to do a care record confirmation. That means it's going to write back into the care history within EMIS Web that this service had been billed for. That's completely configurable. You can either turn it on or off as a practice, or you can define it based on each individual service that you're billing for. So for instance, you might want to record that information for insurance-based services, but not for things like firearms. If I click on the OK here, it will just confirm and it will write back to the care record. Just wait for that to complete, and I just get a confirmation there that the bill's been posted and it's been written to the care record. If I go into EMIS Web, I can see that the care record has been updated. If I refresh that care record, I can now see that a bill's been sent, the invoice, when it was sent, what it was for, and for how much. Here within my payment screen, again, the patient is automatically being selected. From here, I can see all outstanding bills for this patient. So if this patient has only part paid for a previous invoice or has managed to leave the practice without paying at all, then you will be able to see all outstanding bills and you can extend those to see what they're for, and you can part pay or fully pay any of these different items. Simply select the payment method, cash, check, credit card. I'm going to select credit card in this case, and I'm going to generate a receipt for the patient. Again, it's going to go and check the medical systems available. And this is bringing up our integrated virtual terminal. So we work with a number of different providers for virtual terminal. That allows us to take a card payment from within the system. And I'm just going to update the expiry date on that one. Process my card payment. It's been approved. And again, I'm going to write back to the care record to say that this payment had been received. So it's just giving me a confirmation that I'm performing that activity. Okay, and that has now been posted successfully. And I'm then generated a receipt, and this receipt now you can either print out using an A4 printer, or alternatively you can email it using Outlook or whatever email application that you used out to the patient. If I go back to EMIS, I can refresh this, and now I can see on the care history that the bill was paid, what it was that was paid, when the payment was received, what it was for, and how much. So it's a good way of keeping the GPs informed of any billing activity without them needing to use the GP billing system if they prefer not to. Every single patient or third party has an account within the billing system. Within this account, you will get a full transactional history. The benefit of that means that you don't have to print out invoices for yourself, store them in Lever Archer files. All of that history is retained and maintained within the system. And at any point, you can go and print, email, or void transactions within that account. From within this account, you can also refund items if required, or again, you can take deposits upfront for payment. So if somebody at the point of booking, you can take a deposit at that time and then apply that to the bill when it gets generated. For outstanding amounts, you also have the ability to print statements as reminders, and again, those can be printed or emailed to the patient as a reminder of any outstanding amounts that are owed. We go back to our billing dashboard. We have, we'll go through the second process, which is where we're billing a third party. So in this case, I'm going to just synchronize our patient again to bring them into the system. And whilst it's just bringing that patient up, you will notice now it's again syncing the consultations to see if there's any other mapped items. Because we've already billed for that service, then that's no longer brought back by the synchronize of consultations. So it recognizes any services that it's already billed. Here next to the third party, I can select from a directory of different third parties that I've created, or I can add a new third party into the system. The simplest way to add third parties is we support postcode lookup. So at any time, you can just simply put in the postcode relating to the third party, do a find address, go to the bottom of the list, and you tend to find most of the corporates and companies then listed on there. Select those, and that will create you a new third party within the system. So again, just trying to reduce the amount of time, the amount of steps it takes, improve the accuracy of the data that you've got. I'm just going to simply select Bupa. They may have provided you with an authorization number. We can record that on the invoice, and we can also support anonymized invoices. So if you're sending an invoice from a GDPR perspective to a third party, we can suppress the details about the patient and only include the purchase order number. If we do our add items now, you'll see this price list is completely different. So different entities, depending on who we're billing, can have different price lists, and you can set up any number of different price lists that you wish that you require. I'm just going to select an insurance report here and say, okay, that drops it onto my bill. And again, if I need to, I can amend the amounts or apply a discount. In this case, because we're not going to be able to take a payment straight away, we can go to our post and print option. And again, I've set it to write back to the care record when this item is billed. So it's just going to write to the care record there. Okay, and it's just asking, because I billed Bupa for this patient, just wants to know if I want to make this the default. I'm just going to leave the default as it was, and it will then generate me my my invoice. As I say, I've suppressed the patient information in this example, but included the purchase order number, and again, that can then be printed or emailed off to the insurance company. As I mentioned, not just patients, you can look at it from a company or a third-party perspective. So here, Bupa, we have a full history, and next to each of the different items, you will see tags to see whether they're paid or unpaid, or part paid. You will see details of the who the patient is that this bill relates to, and you will also have notes. So if you've added any notes, then you'll see this little yellow filled-in post-it, and you can add any further notes. So if you're doing any tracking of those bills, if you're chasing them up, then you can easily see that on the individual bills. We go back to our billing dashboard, you will see we have this outstanding bills panel. So this is everything that is outstanding and owed to the practice. So if I go into our outstanding bills, and if I wanted to filter this, I can very quickly go in and say, okay, give me everything outstanding for Bupa, and I can quickly see then all of those outstanding items, including the one that I just generated there. You're receiving a BACS payment from Bupa, and it contains multiple payments for different invoices. We can simply go into the pay screen and tick each of those different items that they're paying, record that it was a BACS payment, and we can simply post that into the system because we don't need to provide a receipt to Bupa, and again, it will write back. If I've said I want it to write the care record confirmations, it will write those back to the clinical system, so that there's a record there of those payments. The third example I want to very quickly go through, conscious of our time, is businesses. So here I have an invoice that I've created as a template for this business. So this is held within draft bills. You can create any number of draft bills. They could be held as part of a workflow process. So for instance, you could create the bill when the appointment's made and then just process it when they come into the practice. In this scenario, I'm simply using a template bill that I've created. I'm going to copy this one because I use it every single month, and I can simply then put in here the charges for that month. So for June 2023, however much it was that I wanted to charge them for their room hire, and then I can post and print that. So again, it's just another quick way of being able to simplify that billing process, but equally it means that people don't necessarily have to remember the costs or the items or the services that you bill for them. For each of the different accounts within the system, you can also add alerts. You'll notice at the top that there is an alert that appears whenever I bring the patient into the system. So here you can see an example alert. So we're currently expanding that capability so that you can use it for task management. So after the bill's been paid, for instance, if you want to, you can create an alert in there to say that you've got a piece of work that you've passed off to somebody else in the practice to do. And then you can centrally manage those alerts by within the administration section. So I can see the alerts here, but within the administration section, I can go into our central alerts management, and within here, I can see all alerts within the system and centrally see what that workload looks like. I'm going to very quickly go through reports. So we have a whole host of different reports that are available to you. The first are reconciliation reports. This allows you to see money or bills that have been generated. So for instance, I can see our 2 bills from here. You're able to filter any of these different reports, or you have the ability to export it to Excel. So if you want to share it with the accountant or somebody else in the practice, then you can do that. So we have reports for the services that you, or for the invoices that you've raised, the payments that you've received. So again, if I look at these and I wanted to see all of my backs payments, I can filter that down and see all of my backs payments and reconcile that back to the bank if I need to. We also have an age debt report. This allows you to see a full breakdown of all age debt. So this is everybody that owes you money, and it does allow you to bulk select these and generate statements to be sent out. So you don't need to go into each individual account, use the reports to then bulk select and generate those documents. VAT, if you're VAT registered, it will give you all of the details about any VAT that you've collected, obviously useful when posting your VAT. And we can also integrate into Sage, QuickBooks and Xero. So we have an export function that puts the data into the format necessary to bring that back into your accounting system. So again, trying to reduce the amount of effort within your accounting for the accountant, so all of that revenue is recorded within there. I'm going to finish off with the administration. So you have full control. The system comes configured with a lot of different access profiles. You can synchronize all your users through from your clinical system. You can synchronize your configuration through from the clinical system. So again, we're trying to reduce the amount of time it takes to get set up and start benefiting from the system. Your pricing, again, we have a template that can import a default template with all of the mapping of all of the different SNOMED codes to each of the non-NHS services. So again, that helps you speed up the onboarding process and getting you up and running. As I mentioned, by service, you can define when you write back to the care record. So very, very easy to use price list where you can configure those services. We also have something called bulk bill import. and this allows me to take a report from the clinical system and import it into GP billing to automatically create bills. So it will do some validation first. It will just check to see that those codes are all mapped properly as they should be for each of the different consultations. It will then tell me those ones that have passed or have been posted. So it serves two purposes. One is that it can automatically create those bills for you. And the second is that it can check that you haven't missed any bills. So if it identifies there a SNOMED code for a patient that's for a non-NHS service that hasn't been billed, that would appear in here, and then you can automatically create the bill and have that sent out. Um, Very finally, we have online chat. Online chat allows you to talk to our help desk and get immediate answers or help with the system. We have a support form that you can use, and we have a knowledge center. And that knowledge center has all sorts of information within it. If I go into our knowledge base, you will see there are quick start guides, there are user guides, there are videos and walkthroughs of every single part of the system that helps you learn it in the first instance, albeit we do offer an onboarding service. But for new people coming in, or for those that may only need to bill a patient, then they can just watch the video and get started. And that's your demo today.
That's brilliant, John. Thank you so much. It's always tricky to know what to include and what not to include in a demo. So thank you for showing us the key points and really kind of demonstrating that understanding of how things work in general practice and primary care in designing the software. So I'm just going to share my screen again, and we will now open for questions. So you should have a little question mark on your participant panel there, so do pop any questions in there. Just to let you know next steps, so if you are interested, we are booking our onboarding slots for May now. So ping an email across to me, that's daniel.vincent@enhancedtechnology.co.uk. If you use the subject line onboarding request, that will make sure that it pops to the top of my inbox. Well, thank you very much for your demonstration, and thank everybody who has attended live today. If you are watching the webinar, then thank you very much for reviewing that. Do get in touch with us. Say daniel.vincent@enhancedtechnology.co.uk. Thanks very much, and have a good rest of your week.